Every man who has ever dreamed of the market imagines himself stepping onto the floor already a king, with pockets lined and a voice loud enough to move prices by sheer presence. That is the fantasy, the illusion that ruins more souls than it ever inspires. The truth is harsher, but far more powerful. The greatest campaigns do not begin with wealth. They begin with fragments. They begin with coins rattling in a shallow pocket. The kind of money others would sneer at. The kind of capital men waste on dinners and cigars without thinking twice. But to the trained mind, to the man who sees the market as a battlefield, even that loose change is enough to build a foundation. It is not the money itself that matters. It is the vision behind it. Most men scoff at the idea that great wealth can come from a meager start. They laugh because they are blind. They believe that power in the market is reserved for those born into fortune, or those who stumble into windfalls. But they do not understand that the smallest stake, placed with intelligence, can be multiplied again and again, until the same man who began with pennies finds himself holding positions that can bend the ticker to his will. The mistake of the common trader is to despise the humble beginning, to think the little stake beneath his pride. They want to skip the foundation and step directly into the palace. But the market does not allow that kind of arrogance. The market strips them bare, and it spares only those who respect the weight of even a dollar. The first lesson of the humble beginning is discipline. A man with only a few coins to his name cannot afford to play recklessly. He cannot chase tips. He cannot gamble for excitement. He cannot place himself in positions where a single wrong turn wipes him out. Every decision must be deliberate. Every trade must be measured. That is the gift of starting small. It forces the hand of discipline upon you. It forces you to learn that this game is not about action but about survival. Pocket change becomes the teacher. It whispers, "Protect me, or I will vanish." And in listening, the trader becomes sharper, tougher, more ruthless in cutting away all frivolity. But here is where most men fail. They look at their small stake and curse it. They envy the big operators who can swing in and out with thousands of shares. They burn with impatience, and impatience is the disease that rots their account from within. Instead of mastering their own meager tools, they risk everything to mimic those they admire, forgetting that those giants once stood where they now stand. It is not the size of the stake that matters, but how it is wielded. A scalpel in the hand of a surgeon is far more deadly than a sword in the hand of a drunk. In the market, precision trumps size every time. Think of it like planting seeds. A farmer with a single pouch of grain does not throw it to the wind and hope the sky takes pity. He plants each kernel with care, in good soil in the right season. He waters it, protects it, waits for it to sprout. In time, that handful of grain grows into fields. So it is with the market. The small stake, carefully nurtured, becomes a position. That position, compounded and reinvested, becomes capital. And that capital, disciplined and multiplied, becomes wealth. But the process requires humility. The man who despises his pocket change will never see his millions. The humble beginning also separates the dreamers from the doers. The dreamer imagines what he would do if only he had a fortune to trade with. He spins castles in the air, theories about how he would dominate the ticker if only he were given the chance. But the doer takes what little he has and tests his ideas against the market's cold steel. The market does not care about theories. It does not care about dreams. It only answers to action. The man who begins with pocket change learns this quickly. Every mistake costs him something real, something tangible. There is no cushion, no safety net, no wealthy uncle to refill the account. Losses sting deeper when they are carved out of small beginnings. And that sting, that pain, becomes the iron that hardens a man's resolve. Every empire starts this way. Every operator worth the name has endured the humiliation of being small, of being insignificant, of being the flea at the edge of the market's great elephant. The difference is that they did not shrink from it. They embraced it. They let the early days carve discipline into their bones. They let the humble beginning teach them the one lesson no book, no lecture, no mentor can give. respect for capital. The man who cannot respect a dollar will never command a million. But the humble beginning is more than just discipline. It is camouflage. A man who starts small draws no attention. He can learn, observe, and act in silence, while the giants clash in the open. He can experiment with methods, test theories, and make mistakes under cover of obscurity. Nobody cares what he does, because his stake is too small to matter. And in that invisibility lies safety. By the time the small trader grows into a large operator, he has already mastered the weapons of the game, sharpened in the shadows where no one thought to look. There's a danger, though. Even here, some men, when they taste their first victories with small stakes, let greed consume them. They increase size too quickly. They abandon the discipline that pocket change forced upon them. They leap ahead before their legs are strong enough to hold the weight. And like children trying to wield a giant sword, they collapse under it. The humble beginning teaches patience, but only if the man is willing to learn. If he is not, then his early fortune is nothing but bait the market uses to reel him into ruin. Pocket change, then, is not a limitation. It is a crucible. It is the fire that burns away weakness and leaves only steel. To grow it into millions requires a rare mindset, the ability to see opportunity where others see scraps, the humility to respect every coin, the patience to build slowly, and the courage to keep pressing forward when the climb feels endless. Without these, the man with millions will lose them just as quickly as the man with pennies. But with them, the man with pennies will, in time, command millions. The humble beginning is a test, and most fail it. They fail because they think too small of it. They treat their first stake as disposable, as practice money, as something to be gambled with. But the man who treats even the smallest stake with reverence and precision unlocks the path that others never see. He understands that the game is not about luck, not about the windfall, not about the one grand score that changes everything. It is about building brick until the foundation is so strong that nothing can shake it. The lesson is simple, yet it escapes most. Greatness does not spring fully formed. It grows out of the smallest, humblest beginnings. To despise the beginning is to despise the very process that makes wealth possible. To respect it is to hold in your hand the key that unlocks the millions. The man who grasps this truth sees his pocket change not as an insult, but as an invitation to prove himself, to master the discipline, to carve out his place in the market's unforgiving world. And when he does, he no longer looks at his coins with shame. He looks at them with pride, for he knows they are the first stones of an empire, and the making the market is a living creature. It breathes, it trembles, it shifts its weight from side to side like a predator waiting to spring. To the untrained eye, the movement seems random, meaningless noise flashing across the tape. But to the man who learns its rhythm, every tick carries intention. There are moments when the market whispers, and those whispers tell more truth than all the analysts, forecasts, and reports combined. The power lies in listening, not to the clamor of the crowd, but to the pulse of the market itself. The unseasoned trader believes the secret is in prediction. They fill their heads with charts, theories, and opinions, each one louder than the last. They chase forecasts, trying to see what is coming, as if wealth were waiting at the end of a crystal ball. But the market laughs at predictions. It rewards only interpretation. The tape does not lie. Every trade printed, every rise and fall, every pause between moves is the market speaking in its own language. The one who learns to read it is never surprised, for he sees the footprints of intention long before the herd realizes what has happened. The pulse of the market is not measured in points alone. It is measured in behavior, in the way prices respond to pressure. When a stock rises on heavy buying and refuses to give back ground, it reveals strength. When it falls on weak selling and quickly recovers, it reveals demand. When it hesitates at a level, stalling in silence, it signals a struggle between forces. Each of these movements is a message, a fragment of truth, hidden in plain sight. Most ignore it because they are too impatient to watch, too eager to act. They drown themselves in noise and miss the conversation unfolding before them. Reading the market's pulse requires detachment. The crowd is ruled by emotion, fear when prices drop, greed when they rise. They stamp together, convinced they see the future, and in their frenzy, they reveal themselves. The man who reads the tape does not join them. He watches them. He studies their movements as a hunter, studies the flock. He sees where their panic creates opportunities, where their excitement inflates false strength, where their hesitation creates openings. Their emotions become his tools, because the tape records their every weakness in real time. The market hides nothing from those who listen. Consider the sudden surge of volume when a stock breaks out of its range. The crowd thinks it random, a stroke of luck. But the trained eye knows it is not chance. It is demand surfacing, larger hands stepping in, a wave building before it crests. Or think of the quiet absorption of shares when a stock drifts lower on light selling, yet never collapses. The careless call it weak. The watcher knows it is being accumulated, quietly, patiently, by those preparing for a move. These patterns repeat, endlessly, because human nature repeats. The tape is not just numbers, it is psychology written in ink. Most men will never master this because they are too eager for shortcuts. They want certainty, formulas, guarantees. They think if they can calculate enough ratios or memorize enough chart patterns, they will unlock the key. But the pulse of the market cannot be reduced to a formula. It must be felt. It must be absorbed through hours of watching, through failure, through the sting of losses and the thrill of sudden victories. It is not a science to be learned in books, but an instinct to be sharpened through experience. The tape speaks, but only to those patient enough to hear. To read the market's pulse is to stand apart from the clamor. It is to silence the noise of tips, news, and chatter, and focus on the one thing that cannot lie: the record of actual buying and selling. Every operator with true longevity has lived by this principle. Reports can be falsified, rumors can be manufactured, experts can be wrong, but the tape never lies. It tells you exactly where money is flowing, and money is the only voice that matters. There is also rhythm in time. The market does not move in a straight line, but in waves. A sudden advance, followed by a pause, is not weakness, but the market catching its breath. A long period of quiet trading is not meaningless. It is the coiling of a spring. To the untrained eye, these pauses are dull, but to the skilled, they are the very heartbeat of opportunity. The power lies not in guessing when the explosion will come, but in recognizing that the fuse has been lit. The crowd hates quiet markets. They crave action, motion, the thrill of seeing prices jump. They lose patience during the pauses, and in that impatience they miss the story unfolding. They sell too soon. They buy too late. They chase false moves, all because they cannot endure the silence. But the man who reads the pulse waits. He knows that the market speaks as loudly in its silences as in its surges. He knows that the waiting is often where the fortune is earned, for he positions himself before the crowd even realizes what is happening. There is danger in misreading, of course. The market is a master of disguise. It feints, it tempts, it lures traders into traps, false breakouts, sudden reversals, deceptive rallies. These are the tricks it plays to separate the disciplined from the desperate. The man who thinks he can predict is always caught. But the one who interprets understands that traps are part of the rhythm, too. He does not react with panic when the market turns against him, because he has already accepted that deception is the cost of the game. He cuts when he must, waits when he should, and strikes only when the pulse confirms his suspicion. Over time, this practice builds something rarer than luck: intuition. The trader who reads the tape long enough begins to sense shifts before they are visible. He cannot explain it, not in words that satisfy the academic or the skeptic, but he feels it. A stock that trades differently, a volume that appears unnatural, a pause that stretches too long. These are the whispers only he can hear. To the outsider, it looks like magic, as though he can see the future. But it is no magic, only years of listening to the market until its language becomes his own. This is the true edge, the one advantage that cannot be bought or faked. Anyone can raise capital, anyone can copy strategies, but not everyone can read the pulse of the market. That skill separates the man who survives from the one who burns out. It separates the fortune builder from the gambler, and it begins with humility. The willingness to admit that the market knows more than you, and the patience to learn its language rather than trying to shout over it. In the end, the power of reading the market's pulse is the power of clarity. While the crowd chases illusions, you see truth. While they panic at shadows, you recognize structure. While they cheer at false rallies, you know when the tide is real. It is not about being right every time. No man achieves that. It is about being in harmony with the rhythm, about catching the true waves when they come and stepping aside when the waters are muddied. Those who master this no longer feel lost in the storm of the market. They ride its currents, knowing that the tape itself is their compass, their guide, and their most honest ally. The greatest difficulty in speculation is not in finding the right side of the market. It is in staying there. Any fool with a tip or a lucky guess can stumble into a winning position, but holding that position, sitting still while the profits build, that is where men are broken. The market does not test your knowledge as much as it tests your nerve. It whispers in your ear, tempts you with quick gains, frightens you with sudden setbacks, mocks your patience with endless pauses, and most men fail because they cannot endure the silence, cannot resist the urge to act, cannot summon the discipline to do nothing. When doing nothing is the very key to victory. The beginner believes speculation is action. He thinks the more trades he makes, the greater his chance of success. He hops from stock to stock, chasing movement, desperate to feel alive in the frenzy. He books small profits quickly, afraid they will vanish, and in doing so he strangles the very fortune he seeks. His account becomes a graveyard of missed opportunities. Each trade closed too soon, each profit cut short, each move a scratch when it could have been a masterpiece. He never learns that the real art is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. Patience is the rarest quality in the market. To sit tight requires strength of a different kind than most imagine. It is not the strength to fight, but the strength to remain still. The strength to watch prices swing, sometimes violently against you, and yet remain unmoved because the underlying movement has not changed. It is the strength to ignore the crowd's clamor, the so-called experts calling tops and bottoms, the friends who whisper that it is time to take your money off the table. To sit tight is to stand alone, confident in your own judgment, immune to the panic and greed that sweep over others. There are moments when the market rewards bold entries, when the risk is justified and the tide is turning. But once you are in, once you are aligned with the true movement, the only task that matters is to hold. That is the moment most men fail. They let the small fluctuations shake them. They grab for crumbs while the feast is still cooking. They are so terrified of losing $1 that they never allow themselves to earn a fortune. And so, they trade their future for the comfort of a quick, shallow win. Consider the irony. The hardest move in the market is no move at all. The act of doing nothing burns at the nerves, gnaws at the mind. A stock rises sharply and the novice sells, congratulating himself for his quick profit, only to watch it triple without him. Another stock hesitates, drifts sideways, and the novice grows restless, selling in boredom just before the breakout. They cannot sit still because stillness feels like weakness to them. Yet, stillness, when on the right side, is the ultimate strength. The man who sits tight lets the market work for him, compounding his gains with no further effort. This discipline is not learned easily. It must be beaten into you by experience, carved into your soul by the pain of lost fortunes. Every operator has his story of the great move he entered early and abandoned too soon. Every operator carries the scars of impatience, the haunting memory of what could have been. Those scars are the tuition paid to the market, and those who learn from them, who vow never again to cut themselves short, eventually understand the sacred truth. The big money is made in the sitting, not in the trading. To sit tight is also to trust the market's rhythm. No trend moves in a straight line. Prices advance, then retreat, then advance again. Each correction is a test designed to shake out the weak hands, to force the timid into surrender. Only those with discipline survive these tests. They endure the pullbacks without fear, because they know that true movements are not broken by minor reversals. They recognize that the market breathes in waves, and that to sell at the first exhale is to miss the next great inhale. Discipline in sitting tight is also the antidote to noise. The market is full of it. Opinions, forecasts, news, rumors. Each day brings a dozen reasons to doubt your position, a dozen voices urging you to change course. If you listen to them, you will be tossed like a ship without anchor, blown in every direction by the winds of chatter. But the man who sits tight does not flinch. He knows that the market's true message lies in its action, not in the babble surrounding it. As long as the pulse of the market confirms his judgment, he holds regardless of what the world says. The emotional toll of sitting tight is immense. It demands courage, but a quiet kind of courage, the courage of endurance. It is easy to be brave when charging into battle, sword in hand. It is harder to be brave when standing still, letting the battle rage around you, refusing to move until the field is truly yours. This courage is what separates the fortunate few from the restless many. The restless many make trades. The fortunate few build fortunes. This discipline is not passivity. It is not laziness. It is not ignorance. Sitting tight is an active choice, a deliberate decision to resist the temptation of constant action. It is rooted in conviction, in the deep knowledge that your position is right, and that time is your ally. It is not simply waiting. It is waiting with purpose, waiting with clarity, waiting because you know the true move has not yet run its course. The irony is that most men never experience the reward of sitting tight, because they never endure long enough to see it. They harvest their crop while it is still green, never knowing the richness it would yield if left to ripen. They rob themselves of the compounding effect that transforms small gains into great ones, and so they labor endlessly, trading and trading, while the man with discipline watches his capital swell without constant effort. To master the discipline of sitting tight is to master oneself. It is to silence the voices of fear and greed, to anchor your mind against the storm. It is to recognize that the market's greatest opportunities do not reveal themselves in minutes or hours, but in weeks, months, sometimes years. The quick buck excites, but the lasting fortune rewards only the patient. The crowd cannot grasp this, which is why the crowd is always poor. The lesson is brutal but clear. The market pays those who endure, not those who act the most, not those who know the most, not those who scream the loudest, but those who have the nerve to hold their ground when the tide is in their favor. The discipline of sitting tight is the hardest art of speculation, but it is also the most profitable. For the man who learns it, for the man who can endure the waiting without breaking, the market reveals its richest treasures, hidden in the simple act of doing nothing while the world loses its mind around him. The market does not forgive pride. It does not care about your conviction, your hopes, or your stubborn belief that a losing trade will turn in your favor if you just give it more time. The market is a ruthless judge, and the only law it enforces without mercy is this: cut your losses quickly, or be cut down by them. Most traders cannot bring themselves to obey this law, and that is why most traders perish long before they ever see fortune. They hesitate. They rationalize. They invent reasons to hold on. They imagine the market is wrong and they are right, as though the market were a fallible man and not an unfeeling mechanism of supply and demand. In that hesitation lies their ruin. Losses are inevitable. No operator, no matter how skilled, escapes them. The difference between the survivor and the corpse is not in avoiding losses, but in managing them. The survivor treats a loss like a surgeon treats infection, swift removal before it spreads. There is no room for hesitation, no place for ego. The cut must be made at once, as clean as a blade across rope. To delay is to let the infection spread, to watch a small wound grow until it consumes the whole account. Pocket change preserved today becomes ammunition tomorrow. But pride preserved instead of capital is nothing but poison. The greatest enemy here is the human mind itself. Men hate to admit they are wrong. They cling to the illusion that if they wait long enough, the market will vindicate them. They call their losses investments, as if changing the name will change the reality. They average down, throwing more good money after bad, convincing themselves they are lowering their cost, while in truth they are building their own gallows. They whisper that patience is a virtue, but patience in the face of a loss is not virtue. It is cowardice disguised as wisdom. True courage is not in holding a bad position, but in cutting it before it devours you. The market punishes hesitation with brutal efficiency. A small loss cut quickly is nothing. It is the cost of doing business, a toll paid for the chance at larger gains. But that same small loss left unchecked grows teeth. It digs into the account. It eats away at confidence. It multiplies in size until the operator is paralyzed, unable to act. By the time he finally admits defeat, the damage is catastrophic. His capital is crippled, his nerve is broken, and he is no longer fit to play the game. All because he would not obey the law. All because he chose pride over discipline. Cutting losses is not about numbers alone. It is about survival. The man who obeys this law preserves his freedom to fight another day. He understands that the market will always give another chance, another opportunity, another wave to ride. But only the man with capital in hand can seize it. The one who clings to losses until they consume him has chained himself. He is no longer a player. He is a prisoner, shackled to a mistake he refuses to release. The discipline to cut quickly comes only from a ruthless detachment. You must view each trade as expendable. No single position defines you. No stock is your friend. No company, no matter how promising its story, owes you a profit. Each trade is a soldier in battle. Some will fall. The general who mourns each one, who clings to the wounded instead of advancing, loses the war. The general who accepts the losses, preserves his strength, and presses forward, wins campaigns. That is how capital must be treated, with cold logic, not with emotion. This law also separates the gambler from the operator. The gambler refuses to cut losses because he thrives on hope. He believes his luck will turn. That chance will deliver him salvation. The operator knows better. He knows luck is a lie the market tells the weak. He does not rely on hope. He relies on rules. And his first rule, carved in iron, is that losses must never be allowed to grow. He survives because he treats hope as a disease and discipline as a shield. There is a temptation to believe that a strong conviction can override this law. A man studies a stock, knows its fundamentals, believes in its story. When the price falls, he convinces himself it is temporary, that he knows more than the market. But conviction is no shield against reality. The tape is the only truth. And if the tape says you are wrong, then you are wrong. To argue with it is to argue with gravity. The fall continues whether you believe in it or not. The true professional knows that his strength lies not in being right, but in being swift. He expects to be wrong often. He accepts it as the cost of the game. He builds his strategy around this truth, not against it. Each small loss is a scratch, a shallow cut, nothing more. By removing it quickly, he preserves the body of his capital intact. Then, when the right move comes, when the market aligns in his favor, he has the strength to exploit it fully. Those who refuse to cut, who waste their capital, defending hopeless positions, are empty-handed when the real opportunity arrives. Cutting losses also frees the mind. Nothing weighs heavier on a trader than a festering loss. It drains focus, clouds judgment, poisons decision making. The man with a large uncut loss is no longer objective. He is desperate. Every tick becomes torture. Every rumor a lifeline. Every flicker of hope a reason to hold on just a little longer. In that desperation, he is no longer a trader but a hostage. By cutting losses quickly, the professional avoids this trap. He keeps his mind clear, his judgment sharp, his will unbroken. The market rewards this ruthlessness, though it feels cruel at first. Each swift exit feels like defeat, like humiliation. But it is not. It is discipline, and discipline is the one weapon the market cannot strip from you. The more faithfully you obey this law, the stronger you become. You learn that no single trade matters, that losses are not enemies but teachers, that capital preserved is far more valuable than pride satisfied. In time, you begin to cut losses without hesitation, without pain, almost without thought. It becomes instinct, as natural as breathing. The law of cutting losses is the cornerstone upon which fortunes are built. Without it, all other strategies crumble. The man who masters entries, who times perfectly, who reads the tape with brilliance, will still fall if he cannot cut his losses. But the man who cuts losses swiftly, even if he is wrong often, will endure long enough to find himself on the right side of great moves. In the end, survival is the first victory. Only the survivor ever sees the millions. And survival is won not by brilliance, but by ruthlessness. The ruthless discipline to slice away weakness. The instant it appears, no matter how small, no matter how painful, no matter how much pride it costs. Every trader searches for a secret formula, some hidden code that guarantees success. They dig through books. They listen to experts. They buy systems advertised as foolproof. Yet they never stop to realize that the so-called secret has been in plain sight all along. The market does not reward complexity. It rewards discipline. The true playbook is not a list of tricks, nor is it an algorithm. It is a way of thinking, a way of behaving under pressure. It rests on three pillars, so simple that most men dismiss them: patience, timing, and courage. Each is worthless alone. But when joined, they form the foundation of great fortunes. Patience is the first and hardest pillar. Most men cannot sit still. They need action. They crave movement. They equate trading with constant activity. They enter too soon because they cannot bear to wait. They sell too early because they cannot endure silence. They live in a state of agitation, hands twitching to place the next order, eyes glued to every tick as if watching would change the outcome. But the market does not reward agitation. It rewards those who can wait until the conditions are perfect. Patience means standing aside when nothing is clear, holding your fire while others waste ammunition, watching the field without moving until the true opening presents itself. It is the hardest discipline because it requires doing nothing, and doing nothing feels unbearable to the restless soul. Yet patience is what allows capital to be preserved for the rare moment when the market tips its hand. Timing is the second pillar, the sharp edge of the playbook. To strike too early is to bleed before the battle begins. To strike too late is to arrive when the feast is already eaten. Timing is everything, because the market punishes both hesitation and impatience. The patient man waits, but if he cannot act at the precise moment, his patience is wasted. Timing requires a sharp eye, the ability to sense when the tide is shifting, when accumulation is giving way to breakout, when distribution is about to collapse into panic. It is the art of placing your weight on the exact turn of the tide. And this art cannot be learned in theory. It must be practiced, lived, suffered through. Every mistimed trade teaches the sting of being too early or too late. And only through these scars does timing sharpen. Courage is the third pillar, and perhaps the rarest even with patience and timing. Without courage there is no fortune. Courage is what allows you to press the button when fear gnaws at you. Courage is what keeps you in the position when the market swings violently, when the crowd mocks your decision, when every instinct screams to flee. Courage is not recklessness. It is conviction in the face of uncertainty. It is the willingness to endure discomfort, to hold your ground when the move is real, to act when opportunity demands it, even though risk can never be eliminated. The market rewards the brave, but only the kind of bravery born of preparation, not the foolish bravery of gamblers. These three pillars are not separate. They are interwoven. Patience without timing is wasted waiting. Timing without courage is a wasted signal. Courage without patience is reckless suicide. Only when all three are held together does the playbook reveal its power. The patient man conserves his capital and his energy. The man with timing seizes the precise moment to strike. The man with courage carries the position through storms until the profit is fully realized together. They transform small stakes into great fortunes. The crowd never understands this because the crowd wants shortcuts. They ask for tips. They beg for predictions. They worship anyone who promises easy answers. They want certainty, a guaranteed path, a recipe they can follow without thought. They despise patience because it feels like wasting time. They distrust timing because it cannot be bottled. They lack courage because they want safety in a game that offers none. So they chase every rumor, jump at every flicker of news, panic at every correction. They live in a storm of their own making, while the man who follows the true playbook stands calm, acting only when the elements align. To follow the playbook requires faith, not in luck, not in chance, but in the process itself. You must believe that the market will always provide opportunities if you are patient enough. You must trust your preparation, your study, your discipline, so that when the time comes, you know what to do without hesitation. And you must believe in yourself, even when everything around you suggests you are wrong. Without this faith, you will abandon the playbook at the first sign of difficulty, and you will fall into the traps that devour the crowd daily. Consider the patience required in waiting through dull periods. The market often drifts silent and unremarkable, giving no clear signals. The novice grows restless, forcing trades out of boredom, losing money simply because he cannot sit still. The professional understands that these quiet periods are part of the rhythm. He does not waste energy chasing shadows. He waits, knowing that when the market coils, the release will be violent and profitable. His patience is not idle. It is disciplined observation, the sharpening of a blade that will strike at the right moment. Then comes timing. Imagine a stock being quietly accumulated, volume rising on up days, falling on down days, the price pressing against resistance. The crowd sees nothing but a dull chart. The trained operator sees a fuse being lit. Timing means stepping in just before the breakout, not after the crowd piles in. It means recognizing strength before it becomes obvious, weakness before it becomes collapse. It means acting with precision, not fumbling with guesses. And this precision is the difference between catching the wave and drowning under it. Finally, courage. Even the best timed entry will test you. The market will shake. It will dip. It will pretend to break down before resuming its move. The crowd will panic. The news will scream danger. Your friends will tell you to sell, and here is where courage decides your fate. If you lack it, you will sell too soon, grabbing a small profit while the true fortune is left on the table. If you have it, you will hold through the storm, letting the market work for you, letting your position expand into something life. Changing courage is not blind stubbornness. It is the refusal to surrender when the underlying truth has not changed. Patience, timing, courage, together, they form a cycle. Patience gives you the clarity to wait for the right setup. Timing allows you to enter at the exact moment. Courage allows you to hold until the market gives you all it has. Then the cycle begins again. With patience returning as you wait for the next opportunity, the playbook is not a one-time trick. It is a way of living in the market, repeated endlessly, refined with every campaign. This is why the so-called secret is invisible to most. It looks too simple, too obvious, too unremarkable. They cannot believe that fortunes are built on something as plain as patience, timing, and courage. They prefer complicated systems, complex theories, magical indicators. They want to believe in secrets hidden behind curtains. Yet the truth sits in front of them, ignored, because it requires qualities they do not possess. It requires self-control, sharp perception, and nerve. 3 things the average man will never master. The playbook is not about brilliance, nor about luck. It is about discipline, repeated day after day, year after year. It is about sharpening the ability to wait when waiting is hardest, to strike when the moment is fleeting, to endure when the storm is fiercest. It is about understanding that the market is not conquered in a day, but over a lifetime of obedience to these principles. Those who master it find themselves building empires out of scraps. Those who ignore it find themselves forever chasing shadows, wondering why the millions always slip through their fingers. The playbook never changes because human nature never changes. The same impatience that ruined men a century ago ruins them today. The same mistimed entries, the same lack of courage, the same failure to hold. All repeat endlessly because men refuse to accept the simplicity of the truth. But for the rare few who do, for the ones who embrace patience, timing, and courage as unshakable law, the market becomes less a mystery and more a partner. And it is through this partnership, built on discipline and nerve, that pocket change grows into millions, not by accident, not by luck, but by the steady hand of a man who follows the secret playbook without compromise.